Why did you step out from your own company? What happened there?
It was almost like a voice outside of me said, I want to discover the secrets of the universe. And there are not a lot of people that can directly detect the underlying structure. And I have that ability.
You are very clear about that this is not for everyone. So who is this not for and why is that important?
It requires a level of curiosity. That means I want to know what is behind me generating this experience. I'm willing to let go of everything I made this about, and I'm not gonna defend whatever I think is important about me, about what I know, about what I made this about, because those things are not gonna allow you to see something that you haven't seen before. That keeps you in the same story, in the same identity, in the same need to be right. That keeps this thing stuck. And until you are in a place where you're willing to let go of all of that, I can't enter.
Today, I want to talk about an experience that we all have felt. These patterns that we recognize that come one and another time in our life. Sometimes we look for help, maybe we go to therapy, we try to look for some tools, but the pattern is still alive. Before we go deep into that, I would like to ask you another thing. Ron, you built your own company that was across 5 countries. And why did you step out from your own company? What happened there?
At some point, I realized that I wasn't really enjoying working on my company as much anymore as I always had. And this had been going on for months, and I'd been asking many questions of, do I need to start another company? Am I overworked or whatever? And none of these things were really what was going on. And then one day, after months of this, I imagined myself being at the end of my life and, being really old. And I knew in that moment that I would look back on the life that I would have lived. And I knew that in that moment, I would think, okay, was it nice? Did I live the life that I wanted to live? And such a sadness came over me if I would have be there and regret the choices that I didn't make. And it was so strong that in that moment I asked myself, okay, that's it. What do you want to do? And what I got was almost like a voice outside of me said, I want to discover the secrets of the universe. And I had no idea what that meant, but it was such a thing that came to me that in that moment I said, okay, that's it. Then we're going to do that. And yeah, in that moment I started to think about how I could restructure my company and how I could step out. And of course, people thought I was completely crazy. And I had no ideas I would write any books. I had no ideas that I would start having these capacities to help people. And that would be the direction that I would end up in going. But that was what occurred. It was funny because now I'm thinking back about that time, and one of the things that was really difficult about it was to let go of what I thought was important about me and what other people, could validate about all these things that I was doing. And yeah, and that was a little fight I had to have with myself.
So, yeah, I'm very glad that you did it because you've been helping a lot of people. And I want to ask you, when was that moment when you realized that you were doing something different, that maybe other tools or other therapies were not fixing the problem? Like, when did you realize that?
There was a chapter before I was able to do it because I had practiced with someone who had some of these capacities. And I saw that there were more than one, but they could do something that would transform something really fast in other people. And I first practiced with the method that they were using. And then I started to just play with it, small things. I would see maybe a construct that somebody was functioning from, and I would be able to first see it. And then I would just maybe point them to it. But it was still very unreliable. I wasn't very clean in my perception and the way I would detect it. But I was just playing around with it, and the issues were very small. No, it was just maybe a belief that somebody was functioning from that I was just pointing them to. And so that was kind of the way that it started. And I got more and more consistent and in detecting it clearly, and also more consistent in saying the things that would actually land with someone, and not just recreate a narrative. No, say the exact thing that would immediately dissolve whatever fixed position that they were functioning from. But it took quite a while before I started to see on another level what really was behind somebody's experience or somebody's limitation directly. So they would say something, or something would show up maybe in their body, and I would just almost immediately know what it was about. It was also in the beginning unreliable, and it was more of a vague sense, but the sense was not vague in the sense that I wouldn't see it. It was more that I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't trust the signal because my mind was still doing all kinds of rational things that, no, I need to figure this out. I need to deduct this from reasoning. No, that was not the way that capacity was showing itself. The capacity was, I see it instantly. There is nothing going on in my mind. I have no information. I just know. And so it started to arrive, but it wasn't something that I could reliably work with because I wouldn't trust it. There was too much noise in my own thinking, my own analysis, my own everything that doesn't really allow for that signal to be picked up clearly. And also the way to intervene in a person that was running a certain distortion. I hadn't developed that capacity. So it was just playing around and working with people and helping with people. And in the beginning, small cases dissolved and the cases got more, let's say, complex, and the problems that it would give in people's lives were getting bigger, and those things would open up for me too, and those things would dissolve too. And so it was just, over a period of years, really, cleaning my own thinking mind from intervening, or stopping my own thinking mind from intervening, cleaning all those patterns of analyzing and thinking that you need to, or thinking that I would need to have a rational explanation for what's going on, and quiet that old system entirely. And then the signal would come through cleanly, reliably, and I would see it, and I could intervene if somebody wanted or was open. I would be able to open it up for somebody and help them dissolve in a way the structure underneath what was causing the, let's say, the surface expression that wasn't working in their life. And now it's pretty reliable that if somebody's ready, I'll see it.
I have experienced myself too with you when you did the facilitation for me. I also been in the clarity rooms, and I've seen how you work with people, and it's amazing to see like the precision that you have, that the system you mapped has, and for me it's amazing to see it.
There are many people who, and everything is okay, everything in their own time, and there is in a way nothing wrong with anybody's life, in a sense that I feel that I have to help people. But there are many people who are really ready to say, okay, I really would like to look at what is behind what is creating this thing that isn't working in my life, which is not the same as I want to get rid of this thing because whatever, my body is sick, or I feel anxious and I want this to stop. That everybody wants to stop, but that's not the same as I really want to see clearly what is actually generating this experience that gives me difficulty, this thing in my body that doesn't work, this anxiety that keeps coming back, or these patterns with people that keep repeating. And there are many people that have that curiosity, and there are not a lot of people that can directly detect the underlying structure, and I have that ability.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's great.
What you describe in your books and in your system and in the sessions is that you go to the source where the problem, the pattern is created. Can you explain what does it mean?
Yes. So let's say the way I look at somebody who is coming into maybe the clarity room, or who I help, is there is something that shows up as a surface expression, like something that doesn't work in their life. And often they actually are not very aware of it. It often shows up in a story. So sometimes, and yesterday we ran a clarity room, and there was someone, it was the classic experience. So she came with a problem that she thought she had, and this happens all the time, but she actually came for something else. And she doesn't know that the problem is actually something else, but just by her saying a few things, I pick up a signal of something that you're lying to yourself here. There's something that's not true about what you're saying. There is something that actually is distorting you to be all you can be. And it can be different things. It doesn't really matter. But when somebody is there, I just look for that signal. I look for what is showing up here. And sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it is the problem that they describe, but it doesn't always have to be. But in the moment that I see the surface expression, I don't really pay attention to that at all, because what I know is that is generated somewhere, that surface expression. And that is, in a way, an energetic construct that is sitting somewhere that is creating, let's say, a downstream effect that is creating an expression, maybe in the body, maybe in a relationship pattern, maybe in an anxiety, maybe in something else. And I'm not really so interested in the surface expression. I'm interested in what is that mechanism? Where does it sit? The only thing I'm interested in is, can I get that person to find and see what actually is generating it? And so this is not about, I'm interested in your story. I'm not interested in what you think about your problem, because it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. All the things you have learned about it, it's irrelevant. I stop people in one sentence, because it is information that I do not need. It is information that is not going to help you. It is information that you have built around whatever story you have created about what is going on, that actually hold it firmer in place, rather than allowing you to, with an open mind, look at something that for you is completely unrelated, but is actually the cause of what is generating whatever isn't working in your life. And so the whole idea is, can I find that construct, that energetic structure that is hidden from you, that creates this thing for you? And it's often not just one thing it creates. It's actually, when you look closer, it's actually manifesting in different ways often. But that's the thing of of what I do.
Yeah, and when you are there, I mean, me as someone who wants to release something, and you start asking these questions, and then you realize that the origin of the pattern is something that you never thought about, and it's something that we cannot see by ourselves.
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So of course, when we have this problem, when we have a thing that doesn't work in our life, we try to find out what that is. And we try to find out, if we have a little bit of curiosity, maybe some people just keep getting upset and have absolutely no curiosity, but let's assume that you have. You try to understand what's going on. How can I change this? The problem is that our rational mind is running through a system and gives you information through a system that this distortion is just part of. So it can never see the distortion itself, because every perspective that gets created is created from that distorted point of view. So the perspective that you have because of what your mind tells you is given to you already from that distorted place. Of course, in this world, in this reality, the predominant way of looking at things is one where we use a very rational approach, where we think we need to rationally explain everything, otherwise it can't be true. And that really can get us trapped. So submit to that idea. You say, okay, are there other ways that I can tap into that information, into that knowing, that are not something that my rational mind can do? That doesn't mean that they are not possible to connect with. That doesn't mean that they're not possible to see. But it requires us to stop our being, let's say, the believer that our rational mind can know it, or can see it, or can understand everything. And I think when we submit to that idea, then other ways of receiving information become available. And most people have experienced this. No, maybe I always give the example of the shower, when we're in the shower and all of a sudden an idea comes to us. It's like, oh, why didn't I think of this before? Well, the reason why it comes to you is because you stopped thinking for a little bit, and you allowed, let's say, something to come in that had nothing to do with a process of analyzing, that had nothing to do with a process of thinking. Yeah, that's the thing about the rational mind. It will not see it. And there is no exception to this. There is, if people think, no, but I will see it. No, you won't. There is not one person that runs a distortion that will be able to rationally figure out really what that distortion is. Never. That's the inherent nature of how this works. Your rational mind feeds you back from a distorted position what causes whatever surface expression that you don't like to have. Like this is true for everybody. And so thinking, figuring it out in by thinking about it, by making analysis, it will not make you see it. After it's been shown to you, yes, you can map it, but before, no.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you can't find it. It just means your rational mind will not see it, so you need a different form of access.
Okay. The people who comes to your sessions or they want your help, what kind of things are they carrying?
It can be anything. It can be a physical thing that's been going on, like chronic type of pain or illness is very common, and often it's actually a combination of things, because when it's been going on long enough, it's been showing up in different ways. But one expression is forms of pain or sickness that keep coming back. Another thing are a pattern in, let's say, relationships with people that keep showing up in their life. Another one is certain types of anxieties or fear that don't go away. The other week I had a girl who had this terrible anxiety about speaking in public. And of course, speaking in public, if you've never done it, for most people, this is not super comfortable, and there is a bit of practice in it. It's okay. It's not that uncomfortableness is something weird and there's something, let's say, wrong with you, or you're running a distortion necessarily that really requires dissolution. A bit of practice is for most people required. But there are cases where somebody, and this is true for her, she was very capable, but she had advanced in her professional life a lot. She had capabilities that would suggest that speaking in front of a group of people wouldn't be something that would be challenging for her anymore. But terrible anxiety, like completely incapacitated when she had to speak in public, regardless of what the topic, regardless of what was the crowd. And so that was a case of somebody who was running a very specific distortion that had nothing to do with what she cognitively could remember. So those kind of things that are extreme anxieties that do not want to go away. That it's not a matter of I need to push more, I need to force myself more. No, it won't go away. And so it can really surface in any area of life. And almost everybody has these things running, by the way. It's just they only show up when it becomes too much to keep going. And so I would say it applies to everybody almost, but not everybody wants to change something about it. Okay, perfect. And not everybody is at the point where it became so annoying or so intolerable, maybe so painful even, that they're like, okay, I'm going to do something about it to change it. And so like 90 whatever percent of people walk around with this stuff, low grade, it's kind of annoying. They don't know it's really something that they can just dissolve, but they don't, because the pain hasn't gone to a point where they're actually going to do something about it. So they just accept it as something that's just part of life. And so most people come at a point where it's really has mounted to a level where they're like, I need to do something about it. And then there are the few, the smart ones, in my opinion, that think, wait, this seems like a great life upgrade. I want more of this, but because I don't care if I'm sick or not. If this is something that I can let go of that makes my life a little bit easier, I want to know what the next thing is I can let go of, so it makes life a little bit easier. And so that group is going very fast, because they're just dropping the things one by one. And so all these limitations that they didn't even know that they were functioning from start to fall away, and all of a sudden they're thinking, oh, I didn't even know I was functioning from that limitation. Now this thing became easier too.
I relate a lot to what you are saying. When we
Yeah.
were at Mexico and we were recording the first episodes, and I share with you that I had a feeling inside of me that I didn't knew it was something bad. For me, it was just normal. It's just the way life it is. And it was about feeling that I had to fight for things.
Right.
So all the time I had this feeling inside of me when I starting a new job or doing whatever in my life, skating, like everyday life. I feel like there is a pressure inside of me. Like it needs to be difficult. Like it's not difficult. It's because it's not worth it.
Exactly.
And yeah, then you took me to realize that was something that I took from my mom
Yeah.
when I was little younger. And wow, after that, I'm feeling more relaxed.
Yeah.
It's like why I was creating so much
Exactly. Yeah, there are
complexity in my
yeah,
life. Most people, or a lot of them that comes to the sessions, they are people that already try to look for some help. Maybe they did something to work on what is limiting in their life, but it didn't change it. So why what you do is different? Why you solve it and like
Yeah.
in a fast way?
Two things here. First, it doesn't mean that whatever they have tried before necessarily was useless, because this just was part of whatever road they were walking, and maybe that was something that allowed them to experience it in a bit more of a conscious way, to be more present with what actually was going on. So it may all have played its role, and so this is not about this works and the rest doesn't work, but I can tell you what is different about it.
Okay.
When people are experiencing difficulty in whatever form in their life, they want that to stop because it makes them feel anxious, contracted, not nice. And so they want that feeling to go away because nobody likes to feel that way. And so we look for relief. And so, assuming that the strategy is not drinking a lot of alcohol or taking a lot of drugs, because that's of course numbing the experience, but let's take that. That's one category, also possible, but doesn't of course really solve any of the problems. It just makes the sensation less intense. Understandable that people choose it, but I think everybody understands that that's not really a solution to
Right.
dissolving it. So that's numbing, and numbing can have different forms without us knowing it. We like looking for permanent distraction can also be put in that category, right? And just scrolling on your social media or whatever other form of distraction that people seek to not feel something is also a little bit in that same space. Then when we move up a little bit, are ways that help you regulate your state. So let's say something is not working, and maybe it's physical, anxiety, whatever, you don't feel well. There are things that you can do to temporarily increase, let's say, the quality of how you feel and improve the state that you are in. And for instance, you can go to nature, which often has an effect that calms people down. You can maybe do some exercises with breathing, or you can do sports or yoga or things that help you regulate your state. And they feel very nice. And after you've done that, you feel better. And maybe it lasts for a little while, and wonderful. But it didn't really touch the generator of what was underneath creating that difficulty. People feel better after doing certain things, but the pattern comes back. Then the other thing is that people maybe go and talk about it with somebody. And what they try to do is reorganize maybe the story that has emerged from whatever isn't working in their life. But same thing, it doesn't touch necessarily the energetic source of what is expressing. What is expressing? I have a difficulty with the relationship with my son. And now we're going to talk forever about what that is. And I had my mom was also difficult. But this is a whole lot of restructuring a narrative that came after the fact, because something is generating that experience with your son. It's not about the experience with your son. That's not really relevant. And it might be related to what happened with your mom, but still talking about all that stuff isn't really touching the generator on an energetic level either. it's about reorganizing a story. It's about trying to get a new perspective on things. And these things are very almost impossible to connect with rationally. Even when somebody else tries to reframe a story for you, that's still a very rational process. Maybe with some therapists, there is some, let's say, energetic field work occurring that might accidentally almost touch it. But yeah, the reality is also that most people that work in this field do not have a capacity that I have. That's just, yeah, they don't have this capacity of direct knowing. That's something else, which is not the only thing that occurs when I work with somebody. And so all these things do something with the surface expression, numb it, temporary state regulation, trying to reorganize a narrative rationally. And they all may do something, but none of them says, okay, now stop. We're only interested in looking what actually is really on an energetic level, the structure that's in place that keeps giving you, let's say, a signal in a way that you, of course, don't like, because what, let's say, maybe the being from a higher level seeks for you to experience is to let go of that limiting construct. And it, in a way, gives you the feedback, gives you the signal every time that it's there. But since we don't know how to look for it, since we don't even understand that this is how this works, we just get to experience all this difficulty. And that's what I do. I make people go as fast as humanly possible. I think for now, I don't know, maybe there are other humans that can do it faster, but as fast as I can to that energetic construct. That's the only thing that is relevant when I work with somebody. And that's the only thing I focus on. And when they do, they see it. It's very simple because they feel it instantly. They feel that they connected with it. They feel that, this is the construct. This is what held it in place. You dissolve it and it's gone. You know, you see it flowing out of their body in seconds. It's gone.
It's like a relief.
It's like a relief.
Yeah. And even if it's not like logically making sense, it's like, wow, yeah.
Correct.
Does it mean that nobody can do it by themselves?
It does not mean that. For some of the, let's say, more complicated ones, it might be very challenging for people to do it by themselves initially. But for especially smaller things, it's not so difficult to do it by yourself. It just means that it requires a different approach. And my books explain how you can access this in yourself without using your rational mind. And it's not super complicated hypnosis tricks. No. This is about structurally clearing conclusions that you function from. That's a very important one. Seeing judgments that you are functioning from, that you also unknowingly function from, and understanding that whatever you are judging in the outside world is something that you hold a judgment of in yourself. That mirror, if you start working with that mirror very actively, and it's not, again, very complicated. It's just like, I notice I'm judging. Wait, I'm going to stop myself. I realize it's a judgment about something that I hold in me. And there is a clearing in the book. Or there is a set of things you can do in the book that you just do in that moment that you feel it to soften that judgment that you're functioning from. Because that judgment may seem to only be active when something triggers you that you believe is wrong, but that is a judgment you 24/7 function from. That is something that contracts every element of your experience. So those moments where you feel you're judging something can really be an amazing cue for you to say, wait, I know this is a cue for me to help me see something about myself. And when you use it as such, and you know how to release it, which is not very complicated and you can do yourself, the troubles in your life start to soften. So conclusions is dissolving the conclusions you function from, letting go of the judgments that you're running. And the third one is becoming aware of energies that you are functioning from that are not yours. We absorb a lot of things that show up as maybe ideas or judgments or like even diseases in the body sometimes that we've actually just energetically taken from other people around us. And once we are aware that that possibility exists and we ask ourselves about, is this actually mine? And you can start easy with things like the example that I have all the time is when I'm in an airplane, I'm not afraid of flying at all, at zero. But sometimes all of a sudden, before the plane takes off, I get a weird anxiety. And what happens is there is somebody, in another seat that is afraid because he's going to fly or she's going to fly. And I absorb that anxiety. If I just for 1 second say, is this mine? And I realize no, it goes immediately. So a lot of the thoughts, emotions that we experience are not ours. And people may sometimes, they're with somebody, maybe a friend, and I was thinking just the same thing. It's not random. You're like a receiver that picks up all kinds of things from each other. And sometimes those things kind of lock in. And so you feel something. And often it's not yours. So these are 3 categories: conclusions, judgments, and let's say foreign energies, things that are not yours, that you can work with yourself very easily. And it can really make an immense difference in the limitations that keep you stuck in certain situations. I'm not saying everything can be resolved always by somebody themselves, because sometimes that access is just very complicated. But a lot of these things start with dissolving conclusions, dissolving judgments, and starting to recognize what isn't yours. If you work with those 3 things, that's a lot. And the more complex problems are in a way always some form of these things too. It's just that there are still too many conclusions running in your world or judgments running in your world. And I know you believe you don't have them. Trust me, everybody has them. Yeah. Everybody on some level. Way more than you think. And it doesn't make you wrong. It's just part of the experience. But they limit what you can see. They limit what you can experience. And they generate some of the surface expressions that you do not understand, but are not making your life easy. So you can do it by yourself. And if you start working with these, maybe the first things you take out of your world are smaller, but as you practice a little bit more, the things that you will be able to dissolve yourself get bigger and bigger.
So a lot of people feel tightness, heaviness, or a contraction before an important moment. What happens when the source is dissolved?
Yeah. So what in essence occurs is that when you step into something new that gives you maybe anxiety or difficulty, and you're about to make the choice, you're about to do something for the first time, you're kind of feeling your own limitation. You're kind of feeling where the boundary of what you are already is sitting. And that's also why, let's say the medicine of, step into your fear or do something that is uncomfortable really has truth. Because these are the moments where you do something where there is resistance, and by the act of doing it, the limitation in a way dissolves almost automatically. Now, so that's it. That's in a way the healthy pattern that you are just by pushing yourself through something that is not comfortable for you yet, where you're leaning into the things that are a bit fearful for you or make you feel fearful. You're in a way dissolving them, and I think that's in a way the path of life. We do things that are not so comfortable for us, and by doing them, we expand what we are capable of, what we are being. What the signal is that can come through. There are cases though where that fear that is different than just I'm a bit nervous, I'm uncomfortable, I'm not familiar with this. Mm-hmm. Those are different. I'm a bit fearful, I'm a bit uncomfortable, I don't know how to do this yet. lean into it, just step into it. That's possible, doable. But there are walls that are like, I really tried, I really want to do it. It's not that I'm not motivated. I just can't. The wall doesn't want to go. That's different. That's really about something that you haven't seen, and pushing against it, force isn't going to do anything. So the question is this uncomfortableness? Is this a little bit of fear, but you kind of know that when you go through it, there is kind of excitement about what that will create? That's one thing. Step into it. Just, there isn't much other, there isn't another therapy session that will do a lot for you. Just step into it. When you're thinking about doing it, you're ready. You're already there. The other thing is different. That's like, I want to, but I there's something that blocks me. There is something that stops me. And so that's different. That's an energetic construct running that you haven't seen yet. So, and people will sense the difference. Will sense what's what.
In your website of the Clarity Room, you are very clear about that this is not for everyone. So who is this not for, and why is that important?
The first prerequisite for this is, are you genuinely curious to see what is behind what isn't working in your life? And that's not the same as, I just want to get rid of this pain. I just want to get rid of whatever, I want to get more money. I want to not have this problem with this person. I understand nobody enjoys the surface expression. Everybody wants to get rid of the surface expression that they don't like. That's not the relevant parameter. The relevant parameter is, are you curious to actually see what is behind that? And that means, are you willing to let go of everything that you made this about? Or do you want to appear as somebody who already has all the answers? You want to talk about your story. It's perfectly fine if you want to do those things, but then I cannot help you. It requires a level of curiosity. That means I want to know what is behind me generating this experience. I'm willing to let go of everything I made this about, and I'm not gonna defend whatever I think is important about me, about what I know, about what I made this about, because those things are not gonna allow you to see something that you haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps you in the same story, in the same identity, in the same need to be right. That keeps this thing stuck. And until you are in a place where you see something that you haven't seen before,
Mm-hmm.
that keeps you in the same story, in the same identity, in the same need to be right, that keeps this thing stuck. And until you are in a place where you're willing to let go of all of that, not needing to be right about your story, I can't enter.
Right. What happens after you dissolve the source and the origin of the pattern? How does it feel? What change in the life of the person?
Yeah. Okay, so there isn't one answer to this, of course, but what typically occurs is that there is often an immediate sense of release and relief that's just felt in the body. And often when people come in with pain, it drops immediately. We had a girl that had migraine for like 10
Yeah.
years, and she came in and she had already migraine, and for 2 days straight when she came in, it released, seconds, done,
Yeah.
gone. And
I talked with her recently.
Ah.
She told me that she has also migraine in her job, and now she's not having it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, she was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. So those kind of things, just like 5 seconds, gone. But what really happens is that life starts to reorganize itself. So because that tension, that contraction, that thing that sits in people's, let's say, energetic field, has reorganized, and that means that other elements of life that rationally seem unrelated also start to show up differently. And that might take a bit of time, because it gets embodied and la, la, la. And so in the weeks that follow, maybe the weeks or even few months that follow, things in life start to flow differently. Opportunities that were not available start to come into somebody's reality because their energy has changed and your energy is just getting reflected back to you in this reality. So whatever you attract into your reality, whatever you, let's say, manifest as part of your experience starts to change.
If someone who is listening to this podcast recognize themselves in the conversation, what would you tell them?
That's great. That's actually already an immensely important first step, that you genuinely have curiosity about it. My book is a way to work with some basic tools that allow you to further let go of all kinds of constructs that you function from that you do not know your function from. So that's one option. But a simpler option even is whenever something comes up in your world, whenever something comes up in your day, instead of either getting contracted or trying to understand what this is about, practice asking a question. And one question can be, what awareness does this give me? Or another question can be, what am I defending? Or another question can be, what am I avoiding? And ask a question like that, one of these three, for instance, to practice with. But in the moment that you ask the question, don't go figure out the answer in your head. Absolutely no thinking. Just be present with the question for a moment. Have that thing that doesn't work, have that problem for you that is, you don't know how to change it. Be with it for a second. Ask the question, what am I defending? What am I avoiding? Ask the question, be with the question, and go on with your day. And give it no further thought. Don't go blah, 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 blah. Every time you feel yourself going back in your mind thinking about it, stop yourself and ask the question. And use those moments to be present. Ask the question to yourself, to the universe, whatever, it doesn't matter. And see what happens in maybe the moments after. Not directly, it can be hours after, it can be days after. But what often will occur if you allow yourself to stop thinking and allow yourself to just ask that question and be with the question and go on with your day, that in the moment where you least expect it, all of a sudden, oh, I realize something now. And that really opens something up that was keeping it stuck. So that's one way to give yourself a little opening that your thinking mind will not give you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
That was a great note to end the podcast. We would love you to subscribe to this podcast if you feel connected with the topics we are talking. And also, if you feel like there is someone you know that is ready for this kind of perspective, please share this video with them. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
See you next time.
See you next time.